Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're zeroing in on a fascinating corner of the global economy. And as always, this exploration is specifically for you.
Exactly.
We've got our hands on the Global Polycarbonate Diol Market Report 2025. It's a real treasure trove of information, covers everything from market size, growth rates, regional breakdown.
Applications, key players, the lot.
Right. And our mission today, to cut through all that data, pull out the most important, the most intriguing insights, just to quickly bring you up to speed on what's happening in this market and, well, why it matters.
Precisely. Think of this as your express ticket to understanding polycarbonate diols.
Yeah.
I mean, this report, it gives a very detailed picture.
Yeah.
And our goal is just to pull out those really significant trends and, explain what's driving them.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The report kicks off with the big picture. So in 2025, the global market for these polycarbonate diols, it's projected at USD 359.8 million. Now, that number itself is interesting, sure, but what does it tell us about where things are actually headed?
Well, that initial figure, it's really the launch pad, isn't it? The report forecasts pretty substantial growth from 2025.
Okay.
They expect the market to reach USD 573.4 million by 2033.
Wow.
Yeah, that kind of increase. It signals real momentum in this sector.
That's a pretty impressive leap. What's the engine behind that kind of expansion?
So the report calculates a compound annual growth rate, CAGR, of 6.00%. That's for the period 2025 to 2033.
6%. Okay.
Yeah. And you can think of CAGR as essentially the average yearly growth rate you'd expect over that time, kind of smoothing out any bumps along the way.
Right.
This steady growth really points to increasing adoption, more demand for these materials across different industries.
And just for context.
Oh, right. These figures, they're built using 2024 as the base year. They look back at historical data from 2021 to 2024 and then projected forward all the way to 2033.
Okay, so we're not just seeing a flash in the pan. This is projected to be a sustained upward trend. Now, geographically, where's most of this activity actually taking place? Let's dive into that regional breakdown, see where the hotspots are.
Okay, so North America currently holds the largest slice of the pie, over 40% in 2025, actually.
Over 40%?
Yeah, with a market size of USD 133.13 million. Their growth is projected at a CAGR of 4.8% between 2025 and 2033.
And within North America? Is it mainly the U.S.?
It is, yeah. The U.S. is the dominant force there. Market size of USD 105.04 million in 2025 and a 4.6% CAGR.
Okay.
But, Canada and Mexico also contribute meaningfully. Canada's at USD 15.98 million, Mexico at USD 12.11 million.
Yeah.
And their growth rates are actually slightly higher, 5.6% and 5.3% respectively.
Interesting.
This strong North American presence, it probably reflects its well-established industrial sectors and its history of innovation in material science.
Yeah, that makes sense, given their established manufacturing base. Okay, what about Europe's role in this?
Europe accounts for over 30% of the global revenue, so still very significant.
Right.
Their market size is USD 104.34 million, and they've got a slightly stronger growth outlook, actually, a TGR of 5.1%.
Okay. Any specific countries driving that in Europe?
Yeah, the report highlights a couple. The UK has a USD 17.53 million market and a pretty robust 5.9% CAGR. And Germany is at USD 20.66 million with a 5.3% CAGR.
So healthy growth there, too.
Definitely. These figures suggest a healthy, expanding market in Europe, driven by its own strong industrial traditions and focus on advanced materials.
Okay, so North America and Europe are the current frontrunners, but I think the report suggested we should be looking east for the most rapid expansion.
You're spot on there. The Asia-Pacific region, APAC, it currently holds around 23% of the market share.
Okay, about a quarter.
Yeah. Roughly to the size of USD 86.35 million. But, and this is the key bit, it's anticipated to have the highest growth rate. Its CAGR of 8.8%.
8.8%, wow.
Yeah, it's significant. And leading this dynamic growth are China, which has a USD 36.27 million market and an 8.3% CAGR.
Still very strong.
And particularly India. India really stands out. It has the highest regional CAGR at 10.7%.
10.7%.
On a market size of USD 8.64 million currently.
Okay, India's growth rate is really eye-catching then. That definitely points to a significant reshaping of the global market landscape in the coming years, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This rapid growth in APAC, especially in India and China, it likely reflects their fast-paced industrialization and the increasing demand for higher performance materials as their economies keep developing.
Makes sense. What about the other regions? South America, Middle East, Africa?
Right, let's quickly cover those. South America holds just over a 5% share. Market size is USD 13.67 million, and the CAGR is 6.3%.
Still decent growth.
Yeah, and Brazil is a notable market within that, at USD 5.85 million and a 6.9% CAGR. The Middle East accounts for around 2% share. That's a USD 14.39 million market and a 6.5% CAGR. Saudi Arabia is key there, at USD 5.07 million and 6.8% growth. And Africa has a smaller share, around 1%, a USD 7.92 million market, and a more modest CAGR of 2.3%.
Okay.
South Africa contributes USD 2.79 million of that, growing at 3.2%.
Okay.
So while these regions have smaller current market shares, their growth rates, particularly South America and the Middle East, suggest increasing adoption of polycarbonate diols.
Right. So just to recap that regional picture for you. North America is dominant right now, Europe's a strong second, but the real growth story, the fastest growth, seems to be unfolding in Asia Pacific, particularly India and China.
That's the takeaway, yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. How is this market broken down by form? Are we talking powders, liquids, something else?
Good question. The market is segmented into solid and liquid forms of these polycarbonate diols. And interestingly, back in 2023, the solid form actually held the largest revenue share.
Solid form. Why was that?
Well, it's largely due to its established use and, frankly, high production volumes. It's driven by its application in high-performance adhesives and coatings.
For which industries mainly?
Industrial, automotive, and construction sectors primarily. Plus, another factor is its biocompatibility, which makes it valuable in certain medical devices, where it needs to safely interact with the human body.
Right. And what about the liquid form then? What advantages does that offer?
So the liquid form is identified as the fastest growing segment.
Faster growing, okay.
Yeah. Its key advantage really lies in its flexibility. It offers more flexibility in formulations, especially for coatings, sealants, and adhesives.
And where is that particularly useful?
It seems to be particularly favored in the electronics and textiles industries, mainly because of its excellent resistance to chemicals, which is, pretty crucial in those applications.
That's a key distinction then. Solid for established high-volume uses, but liquid gaining ground fast because it's more adaptable. The report also breaks things down by molecular weight. Why? Why does the size of these molecules matter so much?
Well, molecular weight significantly influences the properties, right? And therefore the applications.
Okay.
Think of it this way. Bigger molecules can offer different characteristics than smaller ones. So the segment with a molecular weight between 1,000 and 2,000 gmol, that one held the highest revenue share in 2023.
The 1,000 to 2,000 range, what makes that range popular?
These grades seem to offer a really good balance, a balance of flexibility, durability, and also how well they stick to other materials' adhesion.
Right.
And that makes them well suited for things like automotive interiors and exteriors, where you need materials that are lightweight but still robust. It contributes to that whole lightweighting trend in cars.
Okay. And the segments with different molecular weights, what makes them stand out?
So the segment with molecular weight less than 1,000 gmol, that's the one experiencing the fastest growth.
The smaller molecules are growing fastest? Why is that?
These lower molecular weight grades, they generally offer superior mechanical performance. So they, better strength, better resistance to wear and tear.
Okay.
And also excellent chemical stability. This makes them highly desirable in coatings, adhesives, elastomers, flexible plastics and rubbers and sealants.
And the demand is coming from?
Strong demand from automotive, construction, and consumer goods sectors. Anywhere those high-performance characteristics are really critical.
So it sounds like maybe higher molecular weight for general toughness and stickiness, but the lower weight stuff for more specialized performance and stability.
That's a pretty good way to summarize it, yeah.
Okay. Now, let's get down to the real-world applications. Where are we actually seeing these polycarbonate diols being used day to day?
Well, in 2025, the biggest application, the one that dominated the market, was synthetic leather production.
Synthetic leather?
Yeah, this is largely fueled by the sheer volume of passenger cars being sold and manufactured, especially in those fast-expanding APAC and European regions we talked about.
Right, for car interiors and things.
Exactly. Seats, dashboards, door panels. Plus, there's ongoing innovation in synthetic leather itself. They're working to meet both tougher regulations and also consumer preferences for, more sustainable, higher quality materials inside their cars.
Okay. And where's the highest growth expected in terms of these end uses?
The Elastomers segment is projected to have the highest CAGR.
Elastomers. So those flexible, rubbery materials.
That's right. Polycarbonate diol-based elastomers are really valued for their combination of flexibility and strength. That makes them essential in various automotive parts, industrial machinery, even medical devices again.
What's driving the growth in elastomers specifically?
Two key things, really. The auto industry's constant push for lighter materials to improve fuel efficiency.
Lightweighting again.
Exactly. And the healthcare sector's really stringent requirements for biocompatible materials. Both of those are fueling growth here.
Are there other major uses?
Well, yeah. The report also highlights other significant applications. Paints and coatings are big for enhancing durability and resistance. Adhesives and sealants for creating strong, lasting bonds.
Right.
And then there's a broader others category that includes things like industrial aerospace applications and even smaller uses like in specialized tapes and labels. It really underscores how versatile these materials are.
It's quite remarkable, isn't it, how many different industries rely on these materials? So what's the underlying force propelling this overall market growth? The report points to some key drivers, I believe.
Absolutely. One really significant factor is the tightening government regulations on volatile organic compounds, or VOCs.
Ah, the environmental angle.
Exactly. These are chemicals that can evaporate into the air, potentially causing harm. Polycarbonate diols inherently have low water solubility and high vapor pressure, which makes them a more environmentally sound alternative in many applications.
So companies are switching to them to meet regulations?
In many cases, yes. The report specifically mentions the U.S. EPA's Regulations 40 CFR 59 as a clear example of this regulatory push, favoring materials like polycarbonate diols.
That makes perfect sense. The global move towards greener materials is having a real tangible impact. What else is contributing to the growth?
Well, the continuous rise in automobile production globally is another big one.
Right, we touched on that with synthetic leather.
Exactly. Synthetic leather is a major application, and it's increasingly used in car interiors. The report notes global auto production hit about 80 million units back in 2021, a 1.6% increase. And that upward trend directly fuels demand for polycarbonate diols.
Okay.
And beyond those specific factors, just the general growth and expansion across a whole spectrum of industries that use these materials,
Yeah.
that's also contributing to the overall market expansion.
Okay, so stricter environmental rules, the massive, ever-growing automotive sector, those are key tailwinds. Are there any challenges? Factors that might be holding this market back a bit?
Yes, the report does identify a key restraint. And that's the relatively high cost associated with processing and producing these aliphatic polycarbonate diols.
Ugh, cost. Always a factor.
It is. The chemical processes involved, they're quite complex. They often require specialized equipment. And all that can lead to higher manufacturing costs compared to, say, more conventional materials.
So that could limit adoption sometimes.
It can, yeah. Especially in industries or applications where price sensitivity is a really major concern.
That's a crucial point to consider. Even with performance advantages, cost can definitely be a barrier. Looking ahead then, what are the major trends shaping the future of this market?
Well, a really significant trend is the growing demand, generally, for more eco-friendly products.
Right, building on the VOC point.
Exactly. Polycarbonate diols fit well within this trend, especially as there's increasing potential to source them from renewable raw materials. That offers a more sustainable alternative.
Okay, sustainability is key. What else?
Another key trend is the expanding use of polycarbonate diols in both the automotive and construction sectors. We keep coming back to them, don't we?
They seem central to this market.
They really are. Their superior mechanical properties like durability, resistance to where they're being increasingly leveraged in coatings, adhesives, sealants used in these industries.
Leading to better products?
Yeah, leading to improved product performance, longer lifespans for things, potentially enhanced energy efficiency, and definitely better resistance to weather and environmental factors.
Okay, so those dual driver sustainability and the need for higher performing materials in key industries, they're really pushing innovation and adoption forward. Now, who are the major players in this competitive arena? Who's making this stuff?
It's quite a competitive market, actually. Features a mix of large global corporations and also some more regionally focused companies.
Okay.
The report highlights leaders like Mitsubishi Chemical Corporation, Asahi Kasei Corporation, Covestro AG, and Toso Corporation.
Big names.
Yeah, exactly. These companies typically have broad product lines of polycarbonate diols, and they invest heavily in R&D to stay ahead.
And the report mentioned some recent developments, right? Innovations from some of these companies.
It did, yeah. It pointed to DuPont's recent launch of their high-performance Kevlar exofiber, which isn't directly polycarbonate diol, but shows that broader trend of innovation in advanced materials.
Right. Context.
And DuPont also strengthened their climate targets, validated by the Science-Based Targets Initiative, SBTI. That highlights the commitment to sustainability across the materials sector.
Okay.
It also specifically mentioned the Mitsubishi Chemical Group developing their new bio-based plastic, the DuraBioTM D93 series. That directly underscores the growing emphasis on sustainable material solutions within this industry.
Bio-based options. Interesting. Any other companies listed?
Yeah, the report also lists other important players: Ubi Industries Ltd., Dasal Corporation, Perstorp Group, Saudi Arabian Oil Co., Aramco, GRR, Finechem, PVT Ltd., and Kimmel Asia Co. Ltd. It indicates, diverse and active competitive landscape.
It certainly sounds like a dynamic market. Established giants, lots of innovation happening. Okay, finally, let's just revisit the geography one last time. The report clearly highlights which regions dominate now and where the fastest growth is expected.
Right. So as we discussed earlier, North America held the largest market share in 2025,
And the reasons for that.
likely due to its mature industrial base, strong investment in R&D, high demand from key sectors like automotive and electronics, plus that increasing focus on sustainable material choices we mentioned.
Okay, but the future growth engine,
That's Asia Pacific. It's projected to experience the most rapid growth, the highest key AGR,
driven by.
driven by rapid industrialization and urbanization, particularly in China, India, and Japan. That leads to significant expansion in their automotive, construction, and electronics sectors. And all of this is supported by pretty substantial infrastructure investments and often favorable government policies encouraging industrial development.
So North America leads in size currently, but the engine of future growth is clearly firing up in the Asia-Pacific region. Okay, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into the polycarbonate diol market. Let's quickly recap the key takeaways for you, the listener.
Sounds good. So in summary, the global polycarbonate diols market, it's on a strong growth trajectory. We're looking at a projected average annual growth, that VAGR, of 6.00% between 2025 and 2033.
Significant growth.
Definitely. While North America currently holds the biggest market share, Asia-Pacific is expected to be the fastest growing region by far.
Oh,
The market's segmented by form. Solid forms lead currently, but liquid forms show the highest growth potential because they're so versatile.
right.
And by molecular weight, the 1,000-2,000 gmol range has the largest share now, but the smaller sub-1,000 gmol segment is expanding most rapidly, driven by demand for enhanced performance.
Got it. And applications.
Key applications include synthetic leather, which is the biggest consumer right now, driven by automotive, and elastomers, which are expected to see the most significant growth, again, linked to automotive, but also medical and industrial uses.
And then drivers behind all this.
It's fueled by those increasingly stringent environmental regulations on VOCs, pushing towards greener alternatives,
Right.
and the growing demands of the huge automotive industry, alongside just a general increase in the need for these high-performance materials across a whole range of other sectors.
Thanks so much for breaking all of that down. It's clear this polycarbonate diols market sits at a really interesting crossroads, doesn't it? Industrial demand, tech innovation, and that huge global push for sustainability.
Absolutely.
And on that note, here's a final thought for you to consider. How does this rising demand for specialized materials like polycarbonate diols, materials driven by both performance needs and environmental concerns, how does that reflect broader shifts in how we manufacture and design products generally?
Good question.
And maybe what other fundamental building block materials might be on the cusp of similar significant growth as industries all over the world continue to evolve and adapt to these new demands and regulations? Something to really think about until our next deep dive.